Hello, everyone. Welcome to the From Busy to Rich podcast. Our podcast exists to inspire advisors to increase their profitability and their quality of life for not just themselves, but also for those that they serve. I am joined, as always, by Wes Young. Wes, how are you today?
Fantastic, Andy. Been looking forward to our conversation on this one for a long time.
Absolutely. We've got a good outline for our conversation today, and some familiar themes, but I think we're going to dive a little deeper. The title, there's a lot of true crime podcasts out there. I've listened to one about an arsonist. It was fascinating. So as we were planning for this, I got kind of excited. But there's some introspection that we're going to have inspired today. So the idea of, are you the arsonist? And I guess the idea being, are we the ones who are responsible for our own destruction? Is that another way of saying that?
Sure.
Yeah. So we want to. I'll let you run with the Godin stuff. You can go in with that.
Sure. No, we brought Seth Godin. I quote him frequently because he's got so many useful ideas. But I've just been in this recent time of really going back and rereading a ton of blogs that he's put out over time.
Yeah. And he creates really timeless, principled stuff.
Yeah. Well, and he's one that not only, we talk about this all the time with clients and with the podcast here, but he not only is good at collecting dots, but connecting dots in a way that makes it super usable for people. So this was one. So again, if you don't follow Seth Godin's work, go follow it. Go to his podcast. Go to his.
And you know that, and this is part of this is just smart. Is that he tells? Do you know how he tells people to get to his website?
Mm-mm.
He says Google Seth. Because what happens is if you Google Seth, it's the second return. If you go into an incognito, because yours will be biased. You have so much Seth Godin traffic on your browser.
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous, right? It's like your homepage, right? But and I think there's a lesson here for all of us. Wes, you're the ideas guy. If a business owner needs help, they're like, "But just go talk to Wes. Like, what's he gonna do? I don't know. Just go find him. He'll help you." But when you search the word Seth on Google, the first is like the definition of the word Seth, and the next one is his blog, right? Which is great. So, be the solution that way. So what about Seth tied you into today's idea of sort of being the instruments of our own destruction?
So this is like direct from Seth. I'm going to read you a paragraph here, a short paragraph, but it'll tie right into everything we're going to talk about. He says this: "It's all invented, but that doesn't mean it's not real. It's all in your head. Just because it's in your head doesn't mean you're not in pain and you don't feel sick. The paralyzing fear we have when faced with freedom is invented, as it is all the drama we experience. We decide the event or probability of the event should be dramatized. We invent our expectation, our rules. We invent what must happen, what needs to happen. We most of all invent the constraints." And I love that part. "We invent the constraints that keep us from seeking freedom. If we invent it, why not invent different rules, different expectations?"
Rarely in my life have I loved and hated something so much at the same time, as that. I mean, that's like a good dental cleaning. You know what I mean? It's so true and yet so painfully true, right?
Yeah. And it's so insightful because if you think about this, as it relates to our topic today, are you the arsonist in your life? We see this in extremes in other people easier than we can see it in ourselves, for sure.
Like what?
Because if we all know somebody, you can picture them right now that something happens. Maybe they get cut off in traffic. Maybe they get a sale doesn't go through, right. A call doesn't happen, a meeting cancels, whatever it is. And the way they respond is they are pouring gas on a fire that really did not exist yet in any big, large shape or form, right? It's like, how are you getting that? I love this with airline flights, Andy, because
airlines are like a pressure cooker.
Oh my gosh. You want to talk about a room full of arsonists. I remember leaving, Andy, seeing you and Sten at one of one of the How to Charge Live events once. And I got to the airport early so I could grab lunch.
I remember this. You didn't have some issue. What was that?
Oh man, well, it was great. I finished lunch, and I get over to the gate in early enough time to like go ahead and
it was like an early afternoon flight. So you would have been
casual. I was going to be back in Austin, so I as I'm walking up to the gate, about 40 minutes before the flight, about 10 minutes before we boarded.
Good, responsible flyer. Good job, Wes. Life is simple. Gonna get on the plane. You're home.
Oh, good. And I get an alert along with all the other people that were around that gate that this flight's been canceled. Ooh. And it didn't tell us any other information, just that it had been canceled. And you would have thought that it told these people, we are about to file bankruptcy in all of your lives. Like everyone in your family is dying of a terminal illness. And because of the way they responded, I mean, it was just like, oh my God. And they're mad and they're doing this. And I thought, well, I guess I'll go set up somewhere and do some work I was going to do. Yeah. I mean, we're all here, guys. It's canceled. It says it. And then of course it like rebooks us on some other flight that's a little bit later. But even then, like I go sit in the little cantina area, had a beer and was hanging out and doing some work, kind of putting some stuff off for a while. So I was like, I can just enjoy this time. Cause it was a little later. But listen, you would have heard the conversations around because other people were doing the same thing. They just were mad. They were like, and I'm like, you guys, look, is it like an unexpected fire that showed up?
Sure.
Yeah. But I'm having a whole lot better time than you guys are. And guess what? We're going to get there at the same time. Either way.
Yeah. I have a friend who owns a phenomenal pizza shop in our town. It's called Melly's. And they were doing some work on the roof of their building, which they rent in a sort of a strip mall thing. And I think they were re-roofing. And so they had ripped a bunch of the roofing off before they put the new roofing on. And then it poured rain. Well, there was no roofing. I mean, there's some, but very little, that took all the protection off. And so wouldn't you know it, right above their pizza shop and ovens, the roof collapsed. Right. And, the fascinating thing was it became this thing where like our community was like, they're like, hey, we're closed. Our roof caved in. And people were like, oh no, like in a good way. They're like, oh, we love you and we're praying for you and we're going to come back right away. And the reality of that was they all got like a week off of work. They got to fix some stuff that it was kind of old and broken anyway. Right. They know the roof works now because it was fixed. Right. Insurance covered it and it was okay.
Yeah.
And other people could have been like, why is God punishing me? And those burrs. And it's like, or you could just go, that happened. What future do you now, what experience do you now want to have? And that's what's so interesting to me about the experience of an advisor is so malleable. If people aren't like super familiar with that word, like bronze is more malleable and gold is more malleable than like steel. Right. It's soft. Like the experience of an advisor is so easily shaped. It's not like, there's a huge GM plant right where I live. Their experience is not malleable. You go stand in a spot and you do your job and you do not get creative. You know what you're doing every day for 40 years if you want to. Right. And because of that, I want to encourage everyone who's listening, just try to open up yourself to the idea that Wes is trying to present to you today, that if you find yourself constantly dealing with fires and just try to remove the emotion of the answer here, but is it possible that you are the arsonist of your own fires?
Yeah.
And the reality of that, Wes, is if you say yes, then here's the beauty of it. That means you're in control.
That's right. And here's a good question, Andy, is if you would say no, ask other people who are close to you that question. Do you feel like the way I show up in some situation is like I pour gas on fires? I make something bigger out of things that are small. Mm. And listen, all of us are strong and weak in this, depends on the area. Like some people have built up enough emotional fitness to they don't pour gas on certain fires. They've got muscle memory response. They've learned how to do it. That's how they keep their job. That's how they get a, first date and a second date. And, they learn to emotionally be fit enough to not respond in a way that is unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some areas where people just have not developed that skill or that emotion, or that emotional response, because Seth is so right. It's all invented. Like the plane canceling, that wasn't invented. It's something that happened. But what was invented is how we all decided we were going to respond to, how we were going to feel about it. Right. And some people felt bad emotionally, physically. I didn't feel bad. I had a great day, and
yeah.
I mean, I would like, dude, I want the plane to get there on the time that I said to myself.
Let me ask you this, Wes. Let me ask you this from a physical perspective. And then we're going to go towards, how we actually choose how we physically feel, which is a weird thought for a lot of people.
Sure.
But it gets canceled. You look down, and if you can, you're an honest guy. Like, tell me how you felt when you saw you're in the Nashville airport, which is a nice airport, right? Yeah. It was early in the day, so you weren't that tired. You were just on spending time with some people. But I think you were alone for that one, because this is one of your earlier ones. You hadn't brought one of your other advisors with you, and you looked down at your phone. And for Wes's situation, he looked at his phone. For you listening, it's going to be something else. But just find out what that's something else for you. But for you, Wes, it said canceled. What were your initial, like, what did you emotionally connect with? Like, what emotions came up when you saw it canceled?
Yeah, I think one that goes through your head is, I'm not going to get home the time I thought I was. Okay. Right? That's a reality of that, because the flight I was about to get on was canceled. Yeah. So I knew there'd be a later one that wouldn't be. And,
but so your mind immediately went to, okay, well, that expectation, I have to deal with that expectation. So did you fight that expectation, and you just go, well, I guess I'm not getting home before?
Right. No, I just surrendered to it.
So I think it's important to stop. First, my expectation is now going to be removed. I'm not going to live and die by 4:00 was my deadline. And, listen, if you're transporting a heart in a cooler and someone's going to die at 4:00, if you don't get the heart there, you can freak out about the plane being canceled. Yeah. But if you're just going to be late, you're not going to be late anymore, because the deadline is gone. So Wes, you said, okay, 4:00 is not my deadline anymore. I have a different expectation. And then you went to what?
I'll go set up somewhere and figure out what the next plane I'm going to be on is going to look like.
Your mind went to, well, there's going to be another plane. Like, I don't know if you were talking. Yeah, we were talking about this. What's the Tom Hanks movie? The Airport.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Why was it?
I think it's called Airport. Yeah, I can tell you.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, that's not going to happen to you, friends. The Tom Hanks movie where you get stuck in an airport. You get stuck in an airport because of it's a visa issue, right?
Yeah.
So he has to stay there, because if he steps outside, they deport him back to wherever, right? So this guy ends up actually living in an airport for a decade or something like that. Like Wes, your reaction was like, not, oh my gosh.
And by the way, that is a great movie to watch. That is a beautiful example of what we're talking about here.
That's true.
Because he figures out how to make the best of the circumstances he's been given.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get stuck in the airport. He doesn't marry Catherine Zeta-Jones. That didn't happen, right? But because he's stuck in the airport, all that transpires.
We call it the Catherine Zeta-Jones principle. You have to embrace
He'll be on the show.
And you too can marry Catherine Zeta. I don't know. She's only been married once or twice, so she's off the market. Sorry. But the reality of that is that you're like, sometimes I find this to be helpful. What's the worst thing that happens? Like I had a bad commute not too long ago, situation, possibility. And the worst case scenario is I just don't go into the office. Like, the worst case scenario is traffic is so bad, I just turn around and go home.
Yeah.
And I close the door and I say, kids, Dad's going to be home. Or I go to Starbucks. Like, that's my worst case scenario. So your worst case scenario in that moment was like, I'm going to go have a beer.
Yeah. That's it. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh man, what am I going to do? Oh, yeah. I can go hang out.
In a place with a bunch of live music and some cool places to hang out.
Yeah. And wait for the next large metallic tube to fly through the air to take me home instead of me having to walk, right? Or a car, right?
And how many ways, if what I think a good thing to do, like if there's a question, if there's a takeaway here, is if you find yourself constantly dealing with fires, you got to ask yourself, who is the arsonist? And I think there's like some things to think about. One is it you? Like, are you really inventing something that's so much more dramatic than needs to be there? Are you the financial news network that's talking about that the market's down and it's never going to be good again? And now things are different. And here's all the reasons.
The market's up and we should be worried about that because of this. And the market's down. And
the market's up. Oh, well, it's not going to last forever, you know?
Yeah. Just worry.
Showing up as an arsonist and really think through your day where you're suffering unnecessarily. Mm-hmm. Or, and here's a big one, are you making other people suffer unnecessarily? Because arson doesn't just affect the person who set the fire, it's all the other people around it. Yeah. And are you, I mean, you know somebody, I guarantee it, and I know somebody, and they're pictured in their mind right now, they're an arsonist, and it's unnecessary in most cases. And doesn't mean you don't love them, and that you don't, it just means, man, they probably are missing opportunities that could have been given to them, but because they are a fire setter, they don't get those opportunities because people are like, I don't want to go through the emotional like constraint of actually dealing with that comes along with being around that person. They set fires that aren't there, even if they're good. They do it, and the experience they have is everybody gets burned.
You know, one of the things that I like to do, one of my favorite things to do when I'm not at work, is to be on a baseball field, either as a coach or now I started to do some umpiring with my son. And I kid you not, Wes, I was at our head umpire of our league moved to a different league because it's closer to his house. And so I've kind of become the default person to kind of schedule the umpires and kind of mentor them and stuff. And last night I went to a go check on this high school kid. He's a sophomore. His name's Alex, and he was at the T-ball field. Now, this is the stuff that, you know, YouTube and Facebook videos are the dreams of. Like, it is just hilarious. It is 7 kids trying to get one baseball. You know, I walked up to the field, and I kid you not, the first thing I see is the first baseman. This girl's, 5 years old, and she just throws her mitt. Like, they're getting on the field to start the inning, and she just gets to her spot, and she takes off her mitt, and she just throws it. And they're like, all right, play ball. And I'm like, God bless this situation. The first thing I see is a girl run on the field and take her mitt and just throw it. And the coaches didn't even tell her to go pick it up. They're like, I guess Molly's not using her mitt to send it. You know what I mean? And I walked up to this high school kid and I said, hey, Alex, like, how are things going? Good, but that coach right there, man, in the Tennessee hat, like, he's just angry. And I thought to myself, literally in that moment, does this guy know this is T-ball?
Right.
Like what is going on in that guy's heart? I actually had compassion, and I was kind of more sad than I was like amused, but I was like, what is going on in your life? In your system, that you get freaked out at a T-ball game. Yeah. Like talk about arson, right? But then we can take this to other areas where it's just like, if work is always this, or your marriage is always this, like, we are a part of everything we relate to. So we have to decide how we're going to relate to it, right?
One of the critical things. So a lot of times, when we're doing, and we've got a really cool exercise for this that we'll talk about in a future episode. But when we're trying to maximize both the effectiveness and the enjoyment that our team experiences in the work that we do, we have this exercise that enables us to like go through all the things you do in your day and you number them. How mission critical is for you to do it. Like, is it your highest, kind of moderate, or not really relevant contribution to the organization? And then the second one is like, how are you enjoying it? Which is also a different level. And we'll go into more of that later. But one of the key takeaways every time we do that exercise, just depending on where someone's at, I frequently have had people that are part of our team say, I'm feeling a little burned out. I'm feeling a little like stressed out. And I'll ask them, I'll say, well, what would a day in the life of you have to look like for you to not feel that way? Like, what would be a great experience through your day?
Yeah.
I will tell you, the all of a sudden it's like putting out the fire, because most of the time they've not identified that. They say, well, I really don't know. And then sometimes it's, so what's the thing that is you're bumping up against that's really causing you to like pour gas on the fire to make it bigger? in that emotional response, because then you can identify it and then you can actually choose how you're going to feel about it. Because if it's one of those things we can, not have to do, great. But if it's mission critical and it's just one of those things that shows up, like here's one for advisors. We will experience times where the markets are selling at a deep discount.
Yeah.
We'll experience it. So if you don't decide now how you're not going to be an arsonist when that happens, in fact, we could do a controlled burn in advance. How about that? Where we already tell the client that that's going to happen. In fact, it's not something we're not only going to happen, not only we're going to take advantage of it. And here's how. And then you tell them that emotionally prepare them in advance to where it's not even a fire for them. So I think it's so much, Andy, about are you it? And really, I think here's maybe a better question is where are you an arsonist? Because you follow me around long enough. And especially if I'm tired or hungry, I'm going to be way more of an arsonist. And so if I know those things, how can I control burn in advance to prepare myself to better handle those? So the next time I'm not doing what I did the last time.
Yeah.
And then I just say a couple other things. I'd love your thoughts. And then I think we can land the plane on this one. But, one of the things, if I had to after surveying a ton of people, one of the things that causes more fires or causes them to be an arsonist than not is the way we respond to disruption to our schedule. And you were telling me a story about this earlier, Andy, about a recent disruption to your schedule that you had a choice. And I guarantee you the other people that had the same choice, not all of them chose not to be an arsonist. In fact, they probably poured gas on the fire of the disruption to their schedule.
Well, and I've had a couple. I know I shared one earlier. There was actually one that happened last night where it was an umpire one where, this is my life. Okay. And this is, I love so many parts of my life. I'm not going to brag, but because I embrace this stuff. So this was my night last night after work, Wes. And there's going to be people who think that's crazy. And some people are like, I miss those days. And some people are in these days and you need to be grateful for them. I'm not encouraging you. I'm telling you, be grateful. So I had to leave work a little early, pick up my son from school. I took him home because he's 16 and he was umpiring a couple games at our local Little League. And my daughter had her second ever softball game, starting about 20 minutes after that. So I had to run, get his umpire equipment. I took him. And then, my youngest daughter, who's 11, I went and coached her game for about an hour and a half, which is super fun. And then after the game, she wants to go, get a hot dog and so on. So we go do that. And I go umpire for a little bit and she's getting chewed up by mosquitoes and she wants to leave. My other daughter's at ballet and I got to pick her up in 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, this timing is just kind of tough. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just go watch your sister finish her ballet. So we leave, we go, get the ballerina and then my other daughter and then take them home. Then I go back to the baseball field. My son's like, pick us up at 9:20 because the game's supposed to be over about 9. But my hand. Wes, it went into extra innings. These kids are 11 years old.
Oh God.
Tied at the sort of time limit of it. There's no new inning after an hour and 45. Okay. The game ended up being 3 hours long and it was awesome. I mean, these kids didn't get home till 10:45 on a school night. You know what I mean? We're going to make new rules in the league because this game was so epic.
I think I burned the field down. I think I would have been an arsonist in that example.
Oh my gosh. It was so great because here's the thing. So in baseball, there's no such thing as overtime. It's called extra innings. I mean, these kids are used to just, you play for an hour and a half or two and you just, you win or lose and you go home. But, and we try to play it up. So it's it's getting kind of late. And these kids are like, gosh, this game's been really long and it's tied. And it's come back and then tie and then they get to bat and they come back and tie. So it's tied. And they're like, the coach is like, we're going to keep playing. And it's totally my call. And I was like, yeah, let's keep, I hate ties. I'm not Canadian. This isn't hockey. Let's play ball. Right. And so great. And the kids are into it and we're into it. And so it's tied at the end of the regular time. And then, one team scores, visitors score 2 and then home scores 2. It's tied again. All right, guys, this next inning, we start with a runner at second base and 1 out. And these kids have never done this. And they're all going, why is there a guy on second? Why is there 1 out? And I was like, it's just a way to speed things up. And this one kid goes, we're in our second overtime. This is epic. You know what I mean? And the coaches are getting kind of cranky. Yeah. And I look at this guy because, I'm on the field. I go, dude, this is what dreams are made of. These kids are living their best life right now. They might remember this game for the rest of their lives. And wouldn't you know it, the game ends on this line drive. The kid drops the ball, then he picks it up, throws it to first, and it's like 3-hour epic, whatever. It was awesome. Now, was my wife super happy that I was out till 10:45, umpiring this game? No. But I got to be part of something awesome. And those kids are going to remember forever. And like was I tired when I woke up this morning at my regular time? Yeah. But it's like, listen, the only thing I know is these two things. Stuff will happen you didn't expect. And number two is you have a choice how to respond to that. Right. I mean, so many of us, per Wes's words, choose to burn it down. Right. And instead it's like, why don't we just go, hey, this is the fire that is life versus burn it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to kind of close this up, I really do think it's as simple as you can be an arsonist or you can do a controlled burn. And controlled burn doesn't mean you're not going to bump up against things that are on fire. It means it doesn't destroy, it only helps. And you have a lot more, your experience, and those that are around you have a lot better experience. So just ask yourself, hey, what areas am I really weak here? Because you're probably good at this in some areas. You're probably got some areas, and there's probably circumstances that when you see them coming, man, I got a high probability of not making life better for anybody in this, including myself, because of what I manufacture, how I invent the way I feel. And I want you to feel great. And I want you to have the people around you be glad they're part of your team, going forward. So just be mindful, kind of a fun offset of all that. Just wanted to kind of dig into this a little bit because we've been talking about it a lot in bits and pieces on the podcast.
Yeah, Wes, we're going to talk about this more because I think it just becomes this theme. It's sort of the DNA.
Yeah.
If you're a person who just is constantly frustrated, there's a person in our community, actually, we're going to kind of get around him on our call tomorrow and help him sort through this. But like, he just feels like his life is chaos. And I think it's chaos because he chooses to label things as chaos. And he just sort of creates chaos.
Yeah.
And listen, people like this. It's like everything is drama to them. Everything is, you could just stop screaming.
Right.
Freaking out. You know what I mean? Like all those people, their plane gets canceled. Like you can choose to freak out or not freak out. You know what I mean? But you have a choice. So I do want to encourage you, like, heed Wes's word of encouragement and warning. But also I love this last point you made, Wes, and I just want to clarify it before we end, is that you might be really good at some areas of life of not being an arsonist, but other areas you are. Like when you're at work, you're like, man, I got this. Like I'm on top of this. Yep, that happened. They said no. There's an issue. I'll fix it. It's okay. Remain calm, everyone. But in your relationships or whatever it might be, your phase, whatever, it's like you just feel like, man, this keeps happening to me. Mm-hmm. So at work, something happens and you go, I can fix it. But somewhere else, you're like, God, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
Your spouse, why are you doing this to me? Understand that there's all different areas of our life that we have control over. And the first step of having control is saying, I have control. And then you start to make decisions. So Wes, thank you for being an example of this. And for those who are flying, I encourage you, there is no better, laboratory or place of observation of people who choose maybe the subway in New York or something like that. Cause everyone just has decided that life is horrible. Right. But to see this in action and then choose not to burn it down, right? Choose a controlled burn. Choose how you want to act and feel and react. And Wes, I thank you for walking us through this. And friends, if you're listening, I hope you'll just put this into practice like right now. What is the thing that's freaking you out that you need to say, what if I just decided not to freak out and just focus on a solution? So Wes, thank you. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Andy.